Hello, my friends. Welcome back. This one begins in a river, or rather, in a place that used to be one. I need to tell you something before we start. This is a story about a motorcycle, but it is also a story about a name so controversial that Harley Davidson has been formally denying the same rumor for over 30 years. They have addressed it in press releases, in interviews. Their own vice president of styling spoke about it directly on the record in 2015. The rumor is still spreading. And by the end of this story, you're going to understand exactly why, and why Harley secretly may not mind at all. But before we get to the name, we need to get to the machine. And the machine begins with one man, a prototype nobody was supposed to see yet, and 2 years of watching strangers' faces in a crowd. Los Angeles, 1991. A concrete channel, the LA River, drained in gray, stretches ahead, flat and wide, running straight for as far as the camera can see. A motorcycle enters from the left. The rider does not look like a man in a hurry. He looks like something inevitable. Behind him, a truck. Around him, the echo of an engine that fills the channel wall to wall, bouncing off concrete, filling the frame, filling the cinema. The scene lasts less than 3 minutes. By the time it ends, everyone in that cinema knew exactly what that motorcycle was. They had never seen it before in their lives. They would never forget it. What makes a machine a legend? Not specifications, not engineering, not even design, though all of those things matter. What makes a machine a legend is a single moment when the world looks up and pays attention. For one motorcycle, that moment arrived in the summer of 1991, in a cinema, with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the saddle. This is the story of the Harley Davidson Fat Boy, and the reason it became a legend is stranger and more deliberate than most people know. And it starts not with a film studio, not with a marketing department, but with a designer who walked through a crowd, alone, for 2 years running, watching what people did when they saw something they had never seen before. The story begins not with a film, with a man walking through a crowd. In 1988, Willie G Davidson, grandson of one of Harley's founders, and the designer whose eye had shaped some of the most important motorcycles the company had ever built, arrived at Daytona Bike Week with something unusual in tow. Not a finished product, a prototype, a machine that existed in one copy, that had never been sold, that was not yet certain to ever reach a showroom. Willie G did not park it and stand back. He rode it through the crowd himself, watching faces, listening to reactions. The prototype had a profile unlike anything Harley had produced before, wide, low, planted, with solid aluminum disc wheels where every other motorcycle wore spokes. From the front, it looked like it took up more space than a motorcycle had any right to occupy. The crowd stopped. People touched it. They asked questions. Some of them looked at it the way people look at something they didn't know they wanted until the exact moment they saw it. Willie G came back the following year and did it again. 2 years of watching. 2 years of listening. By 1990, the Fat Boy was ready for production, not because a board of directors had approved a market research report, but because a designer had stood in a crowd and watched strangers' faces change. Now, the name. We have to talk about the name, because the story of what this motorcycle is called, and what some people believe it really means, is one of the most persistent rumors in the history of motorcycling. And what makes it genuinely fascinating is not whether it's true. It's what the rumor tells us about the machine itself. The official answer is simple. The motorcycle is wide, visually heavy, built with a presence that other machines do not carry. Fat Boy is a description, nothing more, confirmed by Harley's own designers, including their vice president of styling who addressed the question directly and on the record in 2015. But there is another story, one that has been passed from rider to rider for 35 years. The theory goes like this. Fat Man and Little Boy were the names of the atomic bombs dropped on Japan at the end of the Second World War. The Fat Boy's original silver paint matched the color of the Enola Gay, the bomber that carried the first device. The solid disc wheels resembled aircraft landing wheels. The yellow accent rings echoed markings on the bomb casings. The name, the theory claimed, was Harley's hidden joke at the expense of Japanese motorcycle manufacturers, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, who had spent the previous decade threatening Harley's market share and nearly destroyed the American company in the process. Harley Davidson has denied this completely. The theory has been examined and debunked by automotive journalists and historians. There is no credible evidence that any of it is true, and yet the rumor has outlasted every correction. Repeated in magazines, on forums, in documentaries, by writers and non-writers alike. The Fat Boy arrived with a mystery attached to its name, and that mystery, true or not, became part of the machine's mythology before the first year of production was even finished. But here is what was genuinely, provably, visually unusual about this machine. Something that required no rumor, no conspiracy, no code to decode. Something any person could see from 50 meters away and immediately understand they were looking at something different. In 1990, every production motorcycle sold in America had spoked wheels. Wire spokes, cast spokes, some variation of the traditional wheel design that motorcycles had used since the beginning. It was not a choice anyone debated. It was simply what wheels were. The Fat Boy had solid aluminum discs. No spokes, no gaps. A wheel that looked more like something off an aircraft than off a motorcycle showroom floor. And Willie G Davidson called it the machine's fingerprint. You did not need to read a badge or find the model number. You saw the wheels and you knew. At a traffic light, in a car park, from the window of a car passing at speed, the Fat Boy announced itself through a single detail that belonged to nothing else. That instant recognition became the foundation of everything that followed, including what happened on the 18th of July, 1991, because on that date, a film opened in American cinemas. And a single scene, less than 3 minutes long, one sequence among dozens of extraordinary images, did something to this motorcycle that no advertisement, no race win, no magazine cover had ever managed to do. It made the whole world stop at the same time. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. The scene in the Los Angeles River Channel. A 1991 Harley Davidson FLSTF Fat Boy pursued by a truck, ridden by a machine pretending to be a man. The solid disc wheels catching light off the gray concrete. The engine sound filling the channel. Arnold Schwarzenegger not looking left or right. It was less than 3 minutes of screen time. One sequence among many. It should have been easy to forget. It was not easy to forget. By the end of that summer, the Fat Boy was not simply a new model in the Harley lineup. It was the motorcycle the Terminator rode, carried by the most recognizable action film of the year, in the hands of the most recognizable action star in the world. Riders who had never considered owning a Harley walked into dealerships asking for it by name. People who did not yet have a motorcycle license saw that scene and began thinking about getting one. The Fat Boy that Arnold Schwarzenegger rode in that film now lives in the Harley Davidson Museum in Milwaukee. It is one of the most visited objects in the building, not because of what it is mechanically, because of what it became the moment the cameras started rolling. And over the next 30 years, as the machine evolved, 3 engine generations, a complete frame redesign, tires so wide they belong on cars, the same argument kept breaking out inside the Fat Boy community. The same tension between the people who wanted it to change and the people who needed it to stay exactly as it was. And that argument, as it turns out, is the most honest proof that this machine still matters. The original Evolution engine, 1,340 cubic centimeters, solid and honest, carried the machine through the 1990s. In 2000, the twin-cam 88 arrived. A counterbalancing system reduced the vibration riders felt through the handlebars, a practical improvement that purists debated but most riders quietly appreciated. Fuel injection followed. A 6-speed transmission. Eventually, the 103 cubic inch variant with over 100 pound-feet of torque. Then in 2018, Harley rebuilt the entire Softail platform from the ground up. The new frame was 35 pounds lighter and significantly stiffer. Suspension completely redesigned. The wheels grew from 16 inches to 18. The rear tire stretched to an extraordinary 240 millimeters, wider than many car tires. The Milwaukee-Eight arrived in multiple versions, and by 2025 the 117 cubic inch variant produced 125 pound-feet of torque from 1,923 cubic centimeters. Each redesign brought its critics. The 2018 update divided the community. Riders who had loved the original 16-inch wheels and the specific visual weight they gave the machine felt that something essential had been traded away. The counter-argument that the new machine was faster, lighter, better in almost every measurable way did not fully satisfy people who were not, at their core, measuring. This is the tension that every long-running machine eventually faces. Change enough to remain relevant. Change too much and lose the people who made you what you are. The Fat Boy has navigated that tension for 35 years without ever fully resolving it. And the argument, in its own way, is proof that the machine still matters enough to argue about. But by 2025, there was a different kind of turbulence building around Harley Davidson. Not creative tension between generations of riders. Something harder. Something with numbers attached. Between 2024 and 2026, multiple recalls hit the broader Harley lineup. Rear brake line issues. Airbox pressure problems. Clutch failures across different model families, some involving the Fat Boy directly. Harley addressed them under warranty in each case. But for a brand whose reputation for toughness is as central to its identity as any visual detail on the machine, each recall carried a weight beyond the mechanical. Then the financial picture arrived. Harley Davidson reported a loss of $279 million in the final quarter of 2025. The market had changed. The buyers who had filled Harley showrooms in 1997 were in their 60s now. The riders who were 25 years old had different priorities and different machines competing for their attention. The Fat Boy had survived the AMF years, when a bowling company owned Harley and built machines so unreliable that riders nicknamed them hardly drivable. It had survived the twin-cam tensioner problems. It had survived every prediction of its irrelevance. Whether it would survive the fundamental shift in who was buying motorcycles and why remained an open question as 2026 began. And yet, there is something about this machine that makes that question feel different than it does for other bikes. Something that was drawn into its proportions in 1988 and has never left. Something that does not appear in a specification sheet and cannot be added with a bigger engine or a wider tire. Here is what has always set the Fat Boy apart from every other machine in its class. It does not ask for your attention. It does not decorate itself to earn a second look. The solid wheels, the wide stance, the planted silhouette, none of it is designed to be clever or surprising. It is designed to be undeniable. Presence, that is the word. The Fat Boy has it in a way that is almost impossible to explain to someone who has not stood next to one. It occupies space the way very few objects do. It sits still and still demands to be noticed. You cannot spec that into a machine. You cannot add it with a bigger engine or a wider tire or a longer list of features. It either exists in the proportions and the design from the very first sketch, or it never arrives at all. Willie G Davidson drew it into this machine in 1988 on a prototype that nobody was officially supposed to see yet. It has never left. My friends, presence is rare. In machines and in people. The world is full of things that are capable and clever and well-made, and that nobody remembers a week after seeing them. The things that last, the things that become legends, are the ones that walk into a room and change the quality of the air, that do not explain themselves, that simply exist completely and leave it to everyone else to catch up. The Fat Boy has been doing that for 35 years. It rode into a film in 1991, and it never fully rode back out. Before you go, tell me in the comments which part of this story stayed with you. Was it Willie G, riding the prototype through Daytona, reading strangers' faces? The conspiracy theory about the name that Harley has been formally denying for 3 decades, and that keeps spreading anyway? The moment in the LA River Channel that made the whole world stop at the same time? The solid disc wheels that made the machine recognizable before anyone had learned its name? Or the $279 million loss that left the Fat Boy's future genuinely uncertain? Subscribe if you want to follow these stories wherever they lead. Until then, ride something that has presence, and never explain yourself to anyone.